So, where did both parties go from here? Joshua and Dillian Whyte. Let's start with Dillian Whyte. I thought it was, as I say, I think Dillian Whyte is going to struggle against top quality boxers. Whyte's a big puncher, but fundamentally, his hand speed and foot speed just isn't there. He's slow. His jab is just not sound enough. His punches are too looping. His stance, even his stance was wrong last night. He did some things right. He had good basic defence, covering up, chin down, taking shots on the forehead, hands high, etc. He had some good instinctive defence. But I just see him struggling against boxers because with that conditioning and with those technical deficiencies, I think he'll be able to get picked off. It's a long road back for Dillian Whyte, and perhaps his best. He was competitive with AJ last night. If Whyte turned it, with a different level of conditioning and fitness, who knows how that fight would go. Maybe Dillian Whyte, his best chance is to, take one or two journeyman comeback fights and then look for the rematch with Anthony Joshua. That's probably what I'd be going for if I was Dillian Whyte, because that's where the money is, that's where the interest is. That's going to sell out the O2 Arena again. That's going to be big news on pay-per-view again. And to be honest, his stock rose last night, Dillian Whyte, because of the heart and courage he showed, I could see the second fight being even bigger than this first fight, despite the fact that Anthony Joshua did win in convincing enough fashion. Dillian Whyte put enough doubt in people's minds last night that he could beat Anthony Joshua, despite the fact that AJ definitely deserved to win and was the better man on the night. Moving on from that, where does Anthony Joshua go? Right, don't be surprised if Eddie Hearn puts the brakes on him there. Joshua showed there's, at this point, quite a considerable gap between himself and the top fighters in the division. And there's nothing wrong with that. Joshua's a 14-fight novice. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think Deontay Wilder had 30 fights before fighting for the heavyweight title. I don't know how many Tyson Fury's had, but it must be at least 10 more than Anthony Joshua. Joshua's still a young guy in the heavyweight division. He's still relatively inexperienced. There's actually no problem with the fact that at this point he is performing in a manner that is several paces below world level. That's not a criticism. It would almost be, a surprise if he was performing at world level after 14 fights. But don't be surprised to put the brakes on him. People are talking Anthony Joshua Chisora. Joshua probably beats Chisora because Chisora is late in his career. He seems to be more interested in the paydays now. He's someone who routinely gets out of bad conditioning. But let me say it this way, there are problems that Dillian Whyte put Anthony Joshua in last night. If a peak Derek Chisora turned up, a peak Derek Chisora could upset Anthony Joshua. Because Anthony Joshua didn't like it when Dillian Whyte took his reins away from him. Joshua's a guy who likes to fight at that range he prefers. Anthony Joshua didn't like it when the bullets were flying. Anthony Joshua didn't like it when he was taking shots to the body. Derek Chisora with his style, the bobbing and weaving, getting in low, jab to the body, and then a combination of hooks. That could be wrong for Anthony Joshua. It really could be. Don't get me wrong, Derek Chisora is in the autumn of his career now. He's a relatively young man still, Chisora. I think he's only 31. But if Joshua could, Chisora's got a lot of miles on the clock, and Joshua could take him out from range. But if Chisora really turned up in peak physical condition and got on the inside, that's a tough fight for Joshua now. As is Erkan Tepa, You'd have to say that Erkan Tepa has some similarities to Dillian Whyte, but based on Erkan Tepa's performance against David Price, Erkan Tepa is the superior fighter to Dillian Whyte at this stage. He's shown more, and again, that's a very, very tough fight for Anthony Joshua. If I'm honest, I see Eddie Hearn dropping the level of opposition, considerably perhaps. I think they're going to want to take their time with Joshua all of this. Eddie Hearn was saying a year ago the the only man in the world who could give him problems was Vladimir Klitschko. Eddie Hearn was saying he smashes Tyson Fury today, he smashes Deontay Wilder today. Well, not on that performance last night he doesn't, and Eddie Hearn's got to protect Joshua. Joshua's his prime investment. Joshua's his cash cow. Joshua's the guy who can deliver pay-per-view, probably like no others in British boxing right now. So I don't think Eddie Hearn's going to gamble him. Fighters like Erkan Tepe, they're high risk, low reward. Erkan Tepe's not a huge pay-per-view draw. Erkan Tepe's not a huge ticket seller. Stylistically, he's the kind of guy who's going to take Joshua's range. He's going to have a good chin. And he's going to throw some heavy-handed punches up close. I'm not sure about Chisora and Erkan Tepe. I think the level of opposition will drop instantly. And I think they'll be more inclined to match Joshua against guys who are going to fight at range, Maybe a guy like Malik Scott. Malik Scott is an extremely talented boxer. But he's a guy who's going to jab from range. He doesn't carry more power. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's an argument to say Malik Scott is a higher ranked fighter than Derek Chisora. I know Chisora beat him, but you know what I mean, based on Scott's recent performance against Thompson. But I just think stylistically, Malik Scott's going to sort of tap from range, and that's going to work out to Joshua, whereas Tepe's going to take the range away from him and throw hooks. So don't be surprised to see sort of a journeyman followed by a Malik Scott, that type of opposition. I think they're not going to want to put Joshua in with a fighter who's going to cause him the same problems as Dillian Whyte, but may perform to a higher level than Dillian Whyte. I got a lot of messages saying, how does Joshua do against various fighters? So let me address those now. How does Joshua do against Tyson Fury? At this stage, Joshua does not do very well against Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury just box rings around Vladimir Klitschko. At times, Tyson Fury was walking around, messing around, switching stances, hands behind his back. Vladimir Klitschko, based on all proven form, is a bigger puncher than Anthony Joshua. Let's not forget Vladimir Klitschko's KO ratio. Let's not forget the level of opposition Vladimir scored those KOs against. And Tyson Fury was able to clown around with him. Klitschko, people say, is robotic. Klitschko, people say, is stiff and upright. But let me say, if Klitschko's stiff and robotic, at this stage, based on the performance last night, Anthony Joshua is even more so. I think Tyson Fury can dance around Joshua. I think Tyson Fury, with his range, because I see Anthony Joshua is so reliant on range. If he can keep out of reach of that jab and move around Joshua, after 4, 5, 6 rounds, Anthony Joshua's going to be tired, isn't he? Tyson Fury's then the sort of guy who can be out of range, then come into range, work the body. He's got great combinations that change levels. I'm not saying Fury can necessarily knock him out, because Fury's not the biggest puncher, and Joshua did so chin last night with Dillian Whyte. But I think Fury can frustrate him and school him in a boxing session from range. Or I think Fury can maybe totally drain out his stamina with Joshua just being too muscle bound and maybe stop him late. Deontay Wilder, how does that fight go? I make Deontay Wilder a favourite right now. He's just performed at a much higher level. And although people question Deontay Wilder's technique and Deontay Wilder's chin, in Deontay Wilder's biggest fights, in his more recent matchups, I haven't seen him out on his feet, drained of stamina, hurt like I saw Anthony Joshua last night. Let's put it that way. Who else are people talking about Anthony Joshua fighting? I think one that comes up a lot is Joseph Parker. Obviously, they're viewed as the two biggest heavyweight prospects, I guess, in the world. Well, let me tell you something. I strongly believe last night Joseph Parker would have stopped Anthony Joshua in the second round, because unlike Dillian Whyte, Joseph Parker has really good foot speed and really good hand speed. And when he got Joshua hurt, he'd have thrown 10 punches, just back, one after the other. He'd have thrown 10 punches with real bad intentions. He wouldn't have been as gassed as Dillian Whyte. Anthony Joshua was supremely dangerous in the first round of last night. He looked like a lethal weapon. He was hitting so hard. Every fighter who's going to go up against Joshua has to weather that storm, because Joshua is a very dangerous fighter early on. But the way to beat him is to to take him into deep water, to hit him to the body, to make him move, really drain out the stamina. And once you get him hurt, you've got to, he's not calm under fire. You've got to take the reins away from him and force the pace, not let him fight at his own speed. I think Joseph Parker would have stopped him last night. I make Joseph Parker a favourite over Joshua. For me, a lot of these guys, as I say, Fury, Parker, they're favourites over Anthony Joshua. Vladimir Klitschko, Deontay Wilder, they're favourites over Anthony Joshua. Alexander Povetkin is definitely a favourite over Anthony Joshua at present. The way Povetkin can get inside and throw punches is all wrong for Anthony Joshua. It's all wrong for Anthony Joshua. Now again, this is not necessarily a bad thing, because Joshua's a 14-fight novice. He should be losing to the world champion. It's what happens in boxing. And maybe Anthony Joshua can improve. Maybe he can learn from last night. Maybe he can come on for the experience. And maybe 5-10 fights down the line, we can reevaluate and he'll be more even. But what I'm saying is right now, those guys beat Anthony Joshua. Derek Chisora, if Derek Chisora is on peak form, that's a tight matchup. If Kubrat Pulev's on peak form, that's a tight matchup. Bryant Jennings, I'd pick Bryant Jennings and I'd pick David Haye to beat Anthony Joshua based on last night. These guys can move and they can stay out of his range and then they can ambush him. David Haye's the kind of guy who could stay outside of Anthony Joshua's jab and then have the speed and explosiveness just to be on his chest, in a heartbeat. And I'll tell you what, the way Dillian Whyte I just think a guy like David Haye with his explosiveness, I was saying this about Parker, but those sort of fast, athletic, combination power punches wipe out Anthony Joshua in that second round there. For me, there's just a way to go. So I'm picking a lot of guys over him. Lucas Browne versus Anthony Joshua. For me, that's a fight that I've seen a few people talking about online. Lucas Browne is what I class as an educated bouncer. He's tough. He's a big puncher, but he's technically limited. He's very slow and he's very hittable. Lucas Browne, despite the fact he's got an unbeaten record, is a similar standard of fighter to Dillian Whyte. And whilst Lucas Browne has a big punch at any moment, and of course has a chance in any fight, Anthony Joshua is the superior boxer. And if he can avoid getting pulled into the scrap like he did with Dillian Whyte because of how personal it was, for me, Anthony Joshua is at the level now where he beats the Lucas Browns. He beats the Alex Leopais. He beats those sort of guys. It's just the next level up. He's not there yet. And I think they should slow him down. Right now, David Haye, Tyson Fury, they'd be licking their lips. They'd want to take this guy deep. They'd want to exhaust his stamina. And they'd want to do things, the difference between the Tyson Fury and the Dillian Whyte jab, the difference between the David Haye foot speed and the Dillian Whyte foot speed, the difference in hand speed, it would be poles and poles and poles apart, Right now there's a gap between Anthony Joshua and the top 10 of the sport. There's no way Anthony Joshua can be in the top 10 rated fighters right now. Not saying he can't get there, he's a 14-fight novice, and he can and probably will improve. But where he is right now, I'm picking those guys over him. Let me know your thoughts. How do you see those matchups going? Thanks a lot for watching.